Alrighty. I want to make a video, live stream this evening because I had a request of that want to know how am I able to buy, or how am I buying the gear that I have for my studio throughout my house. And so I'm going to talk about that when it comes to buying gear. Oh, I got a viewer already. Welcome. Welcome. Oh, two. Okay, appreciate y'all coming in, Concrete Game and Bobby. Welcome. So I'm talking about buying gear, and this was a request. I was going to talk about buying studio gear, and I guess I'll wait. One of the viewers' name was DL. He wanted to know, how am I affording the gear that I'm gotten? How am I doing it? Well, one thing is that I've been buying gear since 2000. Well, actually earlier than that. I've always had keyboards and stuff like that, but I've been buying gear for the last 25 years. So if he's kind of curious about that, but you're asking, how am I using my Afix 204, my or exciter? I usually use that for percussion and pretty much for percussion and drums mostly, but you can use it on everything, because what's unique about the Aura Exciter as well as the Sonic Maximizer is it's kind of like a misleading tool to make you think like it's almost like it's a EQ, but it's not. What I've learned in audio recording, a lot of times when it comes to these pieces of gear, the balances between what you're hearing between high frequencies and low frequencies are actually not coming to your ears at the exact same time. So it's like nanoseconds. It's like really which can cause these I want to forget the term for it. But anyhow, what the Afix or Exciter and what the Sonic Maximizer does is they kind of even out the highs and lows, that you not only for time purposes but for frequency purposes as well, to kind of balance it out. So you found one at a thrift store. That's how, I got mine from eBay. But I mean, you don't have any problems with it. Have you plugged it up and tried to use it? I don't know. Have you tried it? Have you tried to plug it up and use it? But works well. Okay. It works effectively on drums a lot, especially. But you can use it on vocals. You can use it on bass. You can use it on guitar. You can use it everywhere. It's a really nice. It's one of those tools used in studios that, if you don't know about the Aura Exciter, is one of those kind of tools. Is just another tool that just makes your music. That's why there's I can't explain it. This is the reason why there are so many thousands of recording studios. What should I say? I said more of routing and use case. Okay, what question? Okay, what's the question? So go again. Shoot with your question. But I think he was asking me. Well, I'm just waiting to the question pop up. he was asking me how how was I oh, never mind. So you answered well, thank you. Okay, never mind. Okay. I wasn't sure, but um if I answered that or not. But he was asking me how did I acquire, how am I, like, for one, my house is not an open recording studio for clients. I do things on a personal relationship with the clients that I do work with. I know them well, and so it's kind of like I'm not booking clients. He was probably wondering how I was doing that. I'm not booking clients. Like, in other words, you can't look me up on the internet and book time in here. It's not working like that. So he was wondering how am I making income? Well, not to be too personal, but I make my income from my retirement. That's how I make my income. Um, so he was wondering how I'm able to do that. But that's how I do it. And other than that, I'm like everyone else. I'm always bargain shopping. I'm always on Reverb, eBay, um, um, just any place, or if I can get a good deal on Tommen or Z Sounds or Sweetwater or whatever. If I look for, sometimes you look for what they call open box deals or backroom deals or whatever. That's how I've acquired my gear. But I've acquired a lot of my gear over the last 25 plus years. That's why a lot of the gear, if you watch some of my other videos, that's why you'll still see, even though it looked like I got a lot more, I'm adding to what I've already acquired. I'm not buying gear. I'm and just trading out gear. If I've bought it, I've had it. I don't. So that's how I'm doing it. This is mostly for how DL was wondering. This is for DL. I guess when he pops up. Hopefully, I'll reiterate it because he asked again. Welcome, Andre. I'm just talking about buying gear and software. Even though I do a lot of talking, I'm every now and then I ask a question like for software, like for example, y'all can kind of type in what's your preferred DAW. Like my preferred, I actually like a few, but my number one DAW is Cakewalk. Simply because I've just been using it for 30 years. But I like Studio One. I like Reaper. I like even like Harrison Mix Bus. I like quite a few DAWs, but some people they like FL Studio. FL Studio, I really and I'll tell you for me on the DAWs, because I'm old school and I like working on consoles. I like the mixing console in a DAW to reflect like a real console. That's just me. Not every mixing console comes with everything that would come on an actual analog console. So, but some people prefer this, whatever DAW they like. Okay, I see. So, like Bobby said, he like FL Studio, been on for 20 years. And then let's see, Kevin, you said you like Acid Pro. Used to be Sony Acid Pro. Yeah, I've had some earlier versions of Acid Pro, but I never really got into Acid Pro a whole lot. And then let's see, Andre, you saying you like Reason and Nuendo. I had Nuendo 1.6. That's the last time I messed with Nuendo. And Nuendo being a Steinberg product, the same with Cubase. I've kind of messed with the Cubase more. I kind of like Cubase more. But I think Nuendo, when it came out, was more for people that wanted to do a DAW that was more geared toward like live, like orchestra scores for movies and things like that. That was my understanding, even though you can use Nuendo like any other DAW. But I think that was Steinberg's number one DAW for if you were going to do like scores for like movies and things like that. I think it works really well. And then I'll see Jazzy says he likes Cubase. Welcome, Jazzy. Okay, Two I Love says FL for me primarily. trying to start back learning Logic. So okay, so you said Acid Pro is awesome for quick audio editing, but if you said if you use a lot of MIDI, it's not okay. I get you. So that was one of the things I've always heard about Pro Tools too. Pro Tools was an excellent DAW for editing, but it was not so much for MIDI because in so if you was trying to do MIDI, you know, you needed to use programs like Cakewalk as an example, because Cakewalk started off as a MIDI DAW, and there was other DAWs, you know, like Cubase, you know, DAWs like that started like that, you know. So let me see, are you asking, am I booked every? No, I'm not booked at all. I only work with private clients, and I don't work with a lot of clients. There were maybe 2 or 3 a year. That's about it. I don't have an open studio because it's my house. So I don't want, you know, when you have a house and this particular setup is upstairs, I just don't want, you know, I have a house where people can walk through your house. I just, you know, so that's why my house looks, if you watch some of the videos and when I'm doing these videos of how the house, that's why it looks like it looks. I would definitely have probably a lot more organized and but it's just, you know, just me. I would probably have it looking a lot more studio like if I was going to book for open clients, but I'm in the process. I'm just waiting for the market. The housing market is ridiculous right now to find another home where I can have my studio in my home, but you can enter it and it be closed off from the house. That's what I'm looking for, to move into a home like that. Then I probably would do more open, so book clients. So obviously, like Logic and New, I think Logic. I didn't really start messing with Logic until I started getting to Macs, and I started looking at the Logic. I used to hear about Logic all the time, but I got in, like I said, for me, I got into like Studio One, Cakewalk. I liked it. Harrison Mix Bus and so forth. But there are a lot of people that like Mixcraft 9 or Mixcraft 10 now. There are people that like Reaper, which I actually like Reaper. It's a learning curve with their editing with Reaper to me. I definitely like Reason because I just like the way Reasons. I like how they set that DAW up, especially with just, you know, the rack, being able to use, you know, select your instruments, going in, and I like, especially when they improve the mix, because the mix is basically an SSL mixer. And the sequencer is not in depth like other DAWs like Pro Tools or Reaper or Cakewalk, but it's definitely edible. I don't do a ton of editing that requires 10 million tools like some other DAWs, so I can work and create a full-fledged song in Reason. Let me see, read some more. Bobby says, I'm doing scores in FL Studio. I don't think people realize how versatile. Like I said, the learning curve for me on FL Studio, I just, for example, with Ableton Live, I can look at Ableton Live and understand what's going on. FL Studio to me is kind of like, and you have to kind of figure out what's going on with it. But I guess once you figure out what's going on, you know, that's like any software. Once you know what's going on, then you can work in it. You know, you can do like this. That's any DAW. Once you know it, it's like with me with Cakewalk. I can get up in Cakewalk and I can create full-fledged productions like that because I know it so well. You know, I've been using it for the last 30 years. But I guess that's like anyone that's using Pro Tools. When you've been using Pro Tools for 20 years, yeah, you'll fly through that software like this. So I think that's anything. So it just really depends. But like, I guess that would be any DAW. You know, any DAW can be a learning curve when you just don't know it in the beginning. So it really boils down to learning. If you like it, I think with anything, when you get something and you start to learn it, and then you start the more you learn it and the more you realize what it can do, the more you'll like it, and the more you like it, the more you'll learn, and before you know it, I think that's anything. um and I think that sometimes some people gravitate toward other DAWs that sometimes we may not, maybe sometimes we'll realize, hey, I don't like that flow. Other people like, oh no, this is amazing. Like Ableton Live. I really wasn't feeling Ableton Live initially. But I just never really took the time to learn it. And I think I was kind of biased from using Studio One and Cakewalk the most. So I was biased to the other DAWs. I just didn't really want to take the time. But I started getting all these other DAWs simply because sometimes you never know. You might work with someone and they might be working with FL Studio. And I want to be able to like work in FL Studio just as good as they can. That's why I started downloading all these DAWs to really say, okay, I can see why you like it. That's me. So I say, Andre said you use 96K sampling rate. What do you, I believe it or not, I don't go anything above 44.1, 44.1, maybe 40, 48. That's it. Because the bigger sampling rate, that makes the files bigger. And I'm not going to hear tremendous audio quality difference between 96 and 48. I've already tried it. So I was like, I mean, y'all probably heard a lot of stuff that I do. That's mostly done in 44.1 or 48. So, okay, so I can't pronounce it. Let me see. Was it Frozen Fury 09? Yeah, Frozen Fury 09. Just somebody give a like and just passing by. And the cheap equipment sometimes does better than expensive equipment. And how and it's how you use the equipment. And yeah, exactly. I've always said that. It's I've always said I don't have like $10,000 microphones and things like. But thanks for stopping by, Frozen Fury. So it really, it really doesn't matter if you're getting whatever results you're getting. So, but it's like the only thing is, my biggest thing is there's a few things that can partially matter, and that to me that would be preamps. But that's a different, I might talk about that a little bit later. So welcome, Man Network. Welcome. Says I use a 24-bit 96K on everything. It is a difference. Like I said, if it's working for you, hey, I'm not going to I've never dispute anything that's working for someone else, or that works for that person. For me, I'm getting great results just sticking with the 44.1 and the 48. So that's just me, but it works for me. So and let me see. So, I'm not going to go back and forth between. That's all personal preference between if you want to use 96 or 48. It's personal preference. And then Man says I only use high sample range when you have to slow the audio down drastically in post. Like I said, I've been doing 44.1, 48. No need, and I have my analog can go 192. I just don't set it to 192. It's set at 44.1 right now. When I turn it on, it's at 44.1. And I'm going to do, when you hear the recording for my next video, I'm doing my little audio engineering class. I'm going to record in 44.1. So I'll let y'all be the judge. I haven't heard any complaints from the music that I've done yet. So it is what it is. Um, so I was the title of the video is basically buying, basic about buying studio gear and software. Um, the reason being because I don't know if y'all got a chance. I made a video late last night. I was really late, and it was basically traditional recording versus a modern recording, and basically with it's kind of like traditional recording would be the large console, because believe it or not, even though it's a big console, this is not a large console. This is actually a manageable console. A large console is those consoles you've seen, and if anyone has ever been in a big studio, like if you never got a chance to go to a big studio and you saw an actual like a Knee VR or one of those API legacies or one of those an SSL 6000, whatever, those consoles are huge. Like, in other words, the best way I can describe it is like from my meter bridge here to the faders, when SSL console would come all the way back here, it would be this far. It would be huge. Even though they can have the same channel count, if I had a 48 SSL in here, it would probably be another 3 or 4 feet that way as well. And it would be taller and a ton heavier. But that's traditional, would be a console like that. Tape machine, tape machines are big too. They probably said about this tall. Then depending on what type you got, like a studio, they have the meter bridge with the VU meters or the VU meters. And then of course the outboard gear is the same size, the outboard gear. They're 19-inch racks unless you get 500 series. That's traditional studio gear. But I think with the argument is a lot of engineers that have recorded that way, and we've heard millions of records recorded that way, believe that that's the epitome of sound. I'm not going to argue that it sounds good because, you go back and listen to all the classic records. They were recorded that way. But in my personal opinion, I think with plugins and what you can do with the interfaces today, the plugin, the software, it's caught up. It's caught up, and it's caught up fast. That's me. So some people may not agree. Some people may say, I still want to use a tape machine. I just don't see, because the only thing you can do to tape besides record to it, the only other way you can edit, you have to use the razor blade. I don't see that. I don't see that being taking a razor blade and cutting up your tape. That would make me cringe, especially when let's say I'm an artist and I'm the artist is literally buying that tape, $250 for that reel. You only get 15 minutes because they're playing at 30 inches per second. So it's whizzing. So you only get about 3.5 minutes, maybe 3.5, maybe 3 songs. And you pay $250 for the reel. And you see that guy bring out that razor blade to start slicing. That would make me cringe. At least if someone's doing some editing in a DAW, and they were doing the editing, and before they got a chance to save, let's say the power went out. All of a sudden, you just had a power outage. And then everything comes back on, DAW boots back up, and you go back in the software. It's not even going to save the last edits that it's going to go back to what it had, whatever, just before you started editing. And that's what the best thing, because the biggest complaint that you'll hear about engineers all the time is recall with the old system. Not only do you have to recall the board and set all the knobs back, you got to go back to every piece of outboard gear and set that back. Plus, outboard gear and consoles are temperature funny. They act funny based on. So I just don't see cutting up tape as just a when I can just go into my DAW and I can start editing, sliding, I can do whatever. It's called non-destructive editing, because using the razor blade, that's destructive editing. You better be good. And to me, I paid $250 for that reel. I don't want you using a razor blade that cut what I just paid. 200, you buy 4 or 5 reels, that's $1,250 for those reels. But that's just me. So welcome. Jazzy was asking what's the goal for my studio. The goal for my studio is to work with client. I got a client coming actually Tuesday. But I work with private clients simply because it keeps the unknown traffic. I'm talking about people. It keeps random people, because it's my house. Downstairs, that's right. My bedroom's down there. I got my 9mm, my 12 gauge. I got my, because being military, I'm gonna have weapons. Or my living room, if you'll see my studio tour, it's my house. So if it was an actual commercial building, I got, I still got cameras in here. I got 13 cameras over the place. But if I was in a secure building, in a commercial building, and I could set the alarm, and I got, even though I have insurance, but you have insurance on the building, whatever, I would then I wouldn't really be, I would be more open to have more clients that could book it, but not when I'm living here, because sometimes I'm gone. I go on vacation sometimes, and I could be gone 3, 4. I just don't want people to know I have this kind of gear. That's just me. I mean, if that makes sense. So welcome, DL. I was just waiting for you to pop in, because I know you had asked a question about how I was doing the studio and all that. And I was just saying earlier that I am not an open studio. And as far as I think you were asking earlier, how do I manage and income and all that? Well, I'm retired from the 24 something years in the Army. So I got retirement for life. So that's my income. If that makes sense. And I think that was kind of answering your question earlier when you posted, how am I able to do that? As far as gear, I've been buying this gear I've been buying gear for 25 years. So that's how I was able to do that. So I was hoping, because I was going to answer your question during the live stream. Subman Network says, I'll record on tape if the artist is paying me. I do most of the work hybrid with the DAW. Here's what I know. A lot of artists that do still record the tape, they'll record the tape and then bounce it into like a DAW, like Pro Tools. They only just to get the tape sound, the tape saturation sound. If I was to use tape, that's the only way I would use tape. I'm not editing tape. I may record the tape, but I'm definitely not going to edit the tape. That's why I would rather do it in a DAW. That way, if I make a mistake, I can always, how you do Control Z and all that, you can undo, or I can go up there and undo. You can undo a lot of edits that you can't take that. You can't cut the tape, and once it's cut up, it's cut up. So let me see. Frozen. Let me see what else Frozen Fury said is on that note. Greetings from Texas. Okay, so you're in Texas. I used to live in Texas, and everyone in Texas has a gun and stuff. Yeah, I used to live in Texas. I used to live in Houston. I used to live in Killeen because I was in the Army. I used to live in Waco, and I used to live in Austin. So I love Texas. Love Texas. I always had fun in Texas, especially going down to, I would go to Galveston because, Galveston is only 50 miles from Houston. So I would go down to Galveston, hit the beach or whatever. So, and I even went to San Antonio quite a bit. San Antonio is known for the walk, the river walk. They're known for that. Went down to see the Spurs. You would go to Dallas to watch Dallas. I mean, it's so much you can do in Texas. It's a lot to do in Texas. So I like Texas. So anyhow, so you're asking, how do I make revenue from music if music downloads isn't selling, or you aren't popular enough to, and see, I'm not making music. I'm not making revenue from music. My revenue is coming from my income. Plus I'm a musician at a church, and plus I do side jobs. Like I'm doing mobile mechanic work and things like that. I'm not making money from my studio because I don't really go hard like I used to when I was trying to go hard in the 90s when I was with the record label at that time, because no one wants to buy music. No one wants to buy CDs. Everyone, with the download and everything being streaming and free on the internet, it's like even the record labels are. So it's kind of like, why am I going to think about this? Think about this. Whether you invested $2,000 for your home studio, or you like me who's got over 50 grand, right? Think about that for a second. Or even a commercial studio's got millions of dollars in their recording studio, right? They spent all that money. Then they're spending the artist, producer, musicians, the assistant engineer. So many people are putting all this work in to create this music, to put in all the time. I'm talking to make the best music they can for the fans. And none of the fans are willing to spend any money for it. You got all that money invested in equipment. You got all that money, the time, and all that, and they don't think everything that you put your hard work and sweat to come up with these music and tracks, and they don't believe your music is worth even spending $9.99 on a CD or whatever. It should be free. That's why the music industry is looking the way it is, because people just don't value the work that takes to make it. So that's why I don't really push hard to make money at it anymore. I said, thanks for remembering the question. I know you're retired, so yeah. It's that was the best decision in the world to just do my time. Because like I said, I had gotten out, went to the reserves to do the music and be with the record label. Then I went back on active duty so I can guarantee income for the rest of my life. That was just, I was looking, let me look down the road so that way, whatever the case, I can at least pay my mortgage, lights, water, and gas. So that's why I did that. Let me see. Zone Recording Studio, looking at a Neve BCM 16 Mark II. I haven't got a chance to check that out. You believe it or not, I will tell you what I was looking at for a minute. I was still looking for the large format consoles. Like they had a Neve VR. It was a Neve VR 48. And it was 19,000. And I thought about pushing I thought about it hard, but I was like, man, that console will be so huge in here. And then getting it commissioned and the maintenance and I would have to, do a lot of rearranging the room to fit it. And I said, it just wouldn't be worth. I don't have the clients for that. I thought about it hard, but I just don't have the clients for that. So, listen, man says when I'm hired for a tape project, it's usually recording the drums and bass to tape. Everything else typically just gets tracking through the interview. Yeah, I can see, like, for those that never, I mean, if you heard, you may not think you've heard, for people that think or tape or whatever, you've actually heard tape. If you go back and listen to, go back to the mid 90s, listen to a Nirvana record. I'm saying that right. Or go back and listen to a NSX record, or go back and listen to any records from the 90s. You're listening to the tape. You're listening to tape. Jess said, what are the specs for your computer, Mac or PC? My Mac currently right now is an 8-core processor, 32 gigs of RAM. It's an older Mac. It's still a cheese grater. Looking to get a new Mac with the M1. My PC is just a i7 core processor with 16 gigs of RAM that for now, but looking to get an updated PC as well. Still running Windows 10. Not not a ton of spec, hardcore specs. I have a little gaming one down there. It's running 32 gigs of RAM, Series graphics card for my tower downstairs. That's the one with all the flashing color lights and all that, the fancy looking tower, but it's a gaming PC. So that's pretty much the specs on that. It's nothing super powerful, but it works as long as you have 32 gigs of RAM. It pretty much, you won't have too much problems with running a lot of plugins if need be. Let me see, man. You throwing out there. I bought a new Mac Mini M4. Oh, they got the M4. That's why I forgot about the M4s. They were yep. Mac is on top of the new M chips. Even the base model 599 is cheap, and that's what I'm getting, the new Mac. I'm getting Mac with the new M series chips. That's what's gonna happen for my new Mac. I got a couple of older Macs. Like this Mac is an older Mac. So let me see, Frozen for you. Let me see. Whoever asked the question about music streams and sales, it's product like another business, to just find out other ways to go about getting your product out there outside of stream. You know what? This is the big talk. This is the big talk about what artists are trying to do now. They're trying to do what they call direct sales to consumers now, instead of using the traditional record label or whatever, because most artists sign the record contracts are under 360 deals. And when artists needed record labels, most of these they needed for the radio play, video play, and they needed for distribution and things like that. But the game changer, the gatekeeper, there's no gatekeepers no more. You got the internet. The internet opened the door for artists. The only downside, and this is the biggest talk about this as well, when they open the gates, instead of having thousands of artists that can get the spotlight, it's millions. So no one can really get the spotlight, it's like if Michael Jackson would not be known, the Jackson 5 would not be known if the way we do things today, because it's just millions. You would have to go a whole ton different route. And that's another issue. That's another issue that everyone's trying to figure out in this industry, because that was the biggest thing, is the exposure. The way you can get exposure in the old system, it worked, even though artists were getting ripped off by their labels. But it worked as far as the exposure, because you had limited access, and that forced people to watch the limited access, if that makes sense. So let me see. I got a ton of questions. A ton of statements coming in. Okay. Oh yes. Yes. Okay. You're using the Mac Studio. Okay. I need to check into the Mac Studio. So of course, there's a YouTuber. I try to watch his channel, but it's like every product he talks about is just, it doesn't work. He's always got a complaint. I tried, and he's talking about the new Mac Studio. Don't use it. Don't buy it. And then there's always someone, then some people that would have a Mac Studio, like Zone Recording Studio, says, I have a Mac Studio and I love it. So why does dude always want to make negative reviews about products if other people are having success with it? Anyhow, let me move on before I get into a rant. So man said, I make a great living recording and producing. I do all sorts of projects from artists and bands to movies, commercials. Yeah. If you are in the, if you build a client base where you can make an income like that, that's awesome. But it takes a while to build a client base. Takes a while to build a client base. I definitely, if I had a commercial studio and wanted to start getting clients, it wouldn't take me long to start building clients, but to build a commercial studio is expensive. And I've talked about that in a video. The realistic cost of making a recording studio. I mean, the building, the cabling. I I mean, this thing can get up to the hundreds of thousands of dollars quick. Um, and if not, most top of line studios are million plus, and I don't have $1 million. So, Maddie too has welcome, Maddie. Doing my average Sunday podcast, doing my my usual Sunday live stream. Welcome. So artists are not getting a return on it just, that's the reason why, like I said before, on the music, I just don't, you spend all your time, even if you, like I said, you don't have to have nowhere near amount of gear that I got, but it's the time and the effort to make this music for people. It's no different than like when you got actors and directors and all and executive producers and all that for a movie and film, they're definitely how do they make money? They still charge for people to go to the movie theater. And then when people buy tickets to go to the movie theater to watch the film, and you talk about what 9,000-10,000 movie theaters across, what's that? It's expensive to go to the movies, but people go to it, to watch these films. So that's why they can gross, they spent $50 million to make a movie, but if they gross, or they, what, I don't know, $200-400 million they made at the movie theater, they gotten their money back. They're going to get their money back. But even Hollywood is starting to struggle a little bit, but not like the music industry. So it's just what it is. So let me see. Let me see. I've missed a few. People treat music as a hobby, and yeah. And I think the people that listen to music think the artist is treating it as a hobby and not a career. And a career is what we're trying to make this, right? So, and see, first we say I use mics, but I use direct input into VST amps and drum that sound very, very sorry all the way, unless specify another reason. I mean, whatever works. Like I said, I'm never here to tell anyone how to do their recording. If it works, it works. There is no wrong way. There's no right way to do it. If it's working, it works. Let me see. Last deal. You don't have to worry about room treatment as much, but goes down to what the end goal. Yeah, exactly. People, when they see my room, they first thing they assume I have my acoustics is jacked up in here, and it's not. It is not. What's coming out of those speakers will translate to any median out there. What's coming out of those speakers. So if I hear on these speakers the way it sounds, that's the way it's going to actually sound. It's not like, oh, that's a bad mix when I listen to it. If the way it sounded here is going to sound away in the car, headbuds, whatever, but it works in here. I'm not an acoustician, but it worked. So everything else is just the stuff I got all that on the walls and all that. It's just visual effects. It don't even match, but it's it's just because I bought it, and it's like it is what it is. So let me see. What do I think about the Stam 800G mic? I don't know. Never used it. I think the Stam 800G mic, I think it's supposed to be their version. Like Warm Audio has their 800G mic, just like it's called the WA8000, which is supposed to be basically the Sony 800. But I don't know. I've never used it, so I don't have any thoughts on it. Let's see. Whatever. See, Frozen Free says just more artists don't project their material legally. Don't protect their material. Well, I'm not going to say that. Because like I said, most artists are on the contract. So when you sign a contract, basically what you're doing is you're giving up your copyrights. So the record label owns the copyright. So It depends on how your contract deal is. But if you're an independent artist, and you're not signed to a label, one of the things you want to do, you definitely want to make sure that um, you are, filing your stuff with the Library of Congress. Make sure you're affiliated with the ASCAP or BMI. Make sure you're signed to Nielsen's, sounds. Well, I don't even think it's Nielsen SoundScan anymore. I think it changed. You definitely want to get the PRO and an MRO and just things you want to do. So Jazz, as you're saying, can you get a better sound using the traditional way of recording on a console or in a box? I'm gonna tell you, here's the benefits. I would say the biggest benefits. If you are using digital instrument sounds, I don't care if they're coming from like a Core Chronos, a Yamaha Montage, a Roland Phantom, or you're just using VST instrument software. A lot of those sounds in those keyboards are these sounds that come in these software programs are sample sounds. So even if it's already in your computer, it's already has been converted from analog to digital anyway. It's already converted. So there would really not be too much of a huge benefit going through an analog system unless that you just want a little bit more analog harmonics on top of that digital sound. It might enhance it a little bit, but not tremendously. Where it would benefit the console and the old way with the traditional console and all that, it's basically, it really can shine with acoustic instruments. Guitars, drum kits. That's where it's really going to shine, especially going to the console. Really nice set of preamps, nice microphones. When you're recording a horn, some drums, a guitar cabinet, things like that. That's where, my personal opinion. Even though I do run some digital instruments through here, it's not a gigantic difference from when if I just do things in just using in the box. So if that makes sense. So I hope that answered your question. I don't know if that made sense or not, but it's hard to, but it wouldn't hurt if you had a console. It wouldn't hurt to run your stuff through the console. Anything that you can, if you got something like that, can help. It won't hurt it. So man, okay. I think you say you have to spend way more time in pre-production before you go into the studio to record. Budgets aren't massive now, so you have to be ready to go in. Yeah, because artists just don't get advances anymore. Record labels are broke. They really are. That's just what it is. So everyone has to find a way to do this themselves. Even though it's cheaper with the simple setups to build in your home studios, it is cheaper versus the traditional way because the studios still have to pay for that staff. Their gear is usually on 24/7. The AC, the HVAC, the lights, water, gas. I mean, so that's why this usually can be so much more expensive. But it depends on what you're trying to do. Sometimes it's more beneficial, sometimes it isn't. So let me see what else. Tactical Media said, yeah, you better got to learn your studio monitor and you got to know your studio. Here's the tricky thing about studio monitors. Sometimes a person that just, how can I say it? Sometimes a person that's trying to learn studio monitors may not know what to listen for out of those studio monitors. It's really, really hard to say. So I think as you do it more and more and more, you really learn to start hearing. I think um, when people actually can start hearing compression, they can start hear frequencies, they can start hearing stereo image. I mean, just I can go to 10,000 things that you start hearing. You know, understanding how the sounds reflecting in the room reflections, bass frequencies and things like that. Then I think the monitors are like, oh, I think that you'll start hearing you'll start hearing your studio monitors a little different. Like, wait a minute, oh, those aren't as good as I thought they were, or oh, these are better than I thought they were. But it does take some time to train your ear to hear that. Oh, so Dio said I messed up, spent a lot of money on software. I know that won't be returned. And it will take years to practice, get good at enough to compete with other production and artists. And that's the reason why I'm trying to make my audio engineering class series. The goal is to really get people to actually hear compressors. The goal is to really get people to hear EQ. Because really, when you walk into a recording studio, other than, most, depending on if they have a console or not, the preamps, because a lot of times people can't even hear when they say certain preamps have color. A lot of people they can't hear it. They're like, I don't, why does everyone love a Neve 1073? They don't hear it. And I would say the best way to hear a Neve 1073 preamp is when you have another preamp that is not a Neve 1073 preamp. And you run your mic through the two, then you're like, oh, that preamp sounds different than that one. Let's say you have a $300 preamp. I don't know. I don't know. And you listen to that and you listen to Neve oh, man, I hear that. Okay. It's almost like trying to explain to someone how they can hear even in an odd order of harmonics. You have to train your ear to hear it. A lot of people can't hear even in odd. They don't know what they don't know what they're listening for. But once you know what even and odd harmonics sound like, you're like, oh, or harmonic distortion and things like that. When you start hearing, you're like, oh yeah, I can hear that. A trained ear can hear it like that. So, but that's the goal. That's the goal of what I'm trying to do with this channel, is try to get people to hear and learn without spending hundreds of thousands. That's, it's like I'm not spending $100,000 at an audio engineering school. I can teach you what I know. I don't know everything, but I'll teach you what I know on this channel. That's what I'm trying to do. Let's see. Spawn, salute. Welcome. So man, so I don't suggest an 800G style mic. I got the real Sony. Unless you got a top tier artist and a Pro-approved silent studio, your recording is going to sound like and I guess he's talking about when he was asking about the Stam 800G, which is basically a clone version of the Sony. I don't have any mics like that. And I have a basically it's basically a T11, made by Bad Axe, but it's a modified one. But it's basically an AKG C12 replica. And I use that for my artists. And I still have it on the mic stand over there, on the mic stand. And that's an excellent, but I got quite a few tube mics. I love my ADK TC 500 tube mic as well, but I also have the T190, which is basically a Telefunken 251 clone. And they sound amazing. So I don't see why you would need to spend $10,000 on a microphone. And if, as far as a top tier artist, it's, you know, unless you get Mariah Carey, and it's, I don't, most people would not get I wouldn't even get Mariah Carey in here, because it's just, she's gonna go to a studio that's already had that kind of reputation. You know, it's just what it is. Producers, it's just what it is. But I would, you know, I would never say never. It could never, like, it could never happen. I mean, like, it's impossible, but I don't see it happening. So this, I don't mean to be negative. I'm just seeing the writing on the wall for me. It seems, I hope that I'm wrong, but I never relieve on music for my income. It did pay a few bills every now and then. And that's not being negative. That's just reality. It's just a reality for everyone. Trust me, that's not being negative. There, you got artists right now on different shows talking about the issues with the industry and how artists aren't making any money and how the music industry is dead. And we're talking big name artists in the business. It's a reality. But the economy altogether, you know, milk is $5,000. A carton of eggs is $25 million. I'm exaggerating, but I don't have to, you know, everyone sees what's going on with the economy. So with the economy, that affects everything, including people's ability to spend. You know, people aren't going to concert series like they used to. People just aren't buying records. People just don't have the money. And that's why we have such the things going on with the politics and the elections and everything else. People want the economy to be fixed. But you know, it is what it is. Let me see. Kevin says there's a big movement online where all the folks that were used to using DAWs are now buying hardware gear like mixers and preamps for the sound they generate. They say you can't get it in the DAW. Well, the DAW itself actually doesn't make sound. It's the AD to DA converters. Your AD to DA converters, really, because that's, you know, digital actually don't make sound. When it goes from analog, it converts to digital, it becomes binary. It's just ones and zeros. But how it processes it, and then when it converts it back from digital back to analog, that's the key point. But I think people with the, you know, with like anything else, you think about it with music change and everything else. I think people are starting wanting to generate to go back to the classic of music styles and music as well. So you think about it, if someone, I'll just use Earth, Wind, and Fire. Earth, Wind, and Fire was a band that had actual drum, and actual percussions, actual horn section. And, you know, Verdine White's playing actual bass. You got two guitar players. You got a keyboard player playing analog synths and things like that. And they recorded on a, you know, an analog console. They recorded the 2-inch tape. They were using outboard gear to get the sound. So I think people want to get that type of sound again, just based because how those records sounded. So that might be the big push. That's why I have gear like I have in my studio, because it is a certain sound. Versus if I use, like for me, I would never need to go analog. If I'm just going to do a straight EDM record, let's say I was just going to do, which stand, you know, everyone knows electronic digital music. If I was going to do an EDM music, I was just going to use my MPC and I was going to use straight VST instruments for that style of music, I wouldn't need to go analog because it's all digital. So digital style music like that, those type of sounds and samples, it's its own sound. If that makes it, you know, if that makes sense. So, but if you're trying to get that band classic sound, yeah, I think the analog movement would be, that's just me. I'm just throwing that out there. Sponsor gives more warmth feeling. And that, you know, it's kind of like, and there's, you know, believe it or not, there's an argument between tube transformer sound versus solid state. And which one sounds better, but you know, believe it or not, it's like whether it's a tube microphone or a solid state microphone. It's like my Rode NT2A versus my tube microphone, my ADK TC500 tube microphone. Really, even if you go to a Neumann U67 or 47 versus a Neumann U87, well, a Neumann U87 is a FET microphone, it's a solid state. It's not a tube microphone, and it's a great sounding microphone. So sometimes certain things work better on certain sources than others. Like another underrated microphone would be ribbon microphones. That was one of Bruce Sweding's go-to tools was ribbon microphones. And he recorded probably half of Michael Jackson's successful career of top 10 songs using ribbons. So it's an art form. It's to learning which microphones work. So all right, let me read some more statements. So Bobby said, when am I going to do a music review stream? I'm trying to set it because I actually have another engineer. That's what I'm waiting on. I got another engineer friend of mine, and when I set up I'm actually going to do like a podcast where people can actually chime in, but I'm waiting on him. So that's the reason why I haven't done it yet. So soon as he comes on board, I'm going to let everyone know when we can, I'll let everyone know when you can actually do the live stream where instead of me just doing these Sunday podcasts, we can actually, I can see you, you can see me, we can all interact. That's coming. But like I said, I'm waiting on him. So I'll say Pop-Tarts and grape soda. Welcome. That's an interesting name for your channel, but okay, welcome Pop-Tarts and grape soda. How do you use the Roland Verse MV1 as a sound module in the MPC software? How do you route to get I don't use the Roland Verse, so MV1. I just don't. So I can't answer that question. Oh, he's like Dio said, a pack of soda is $10 a bottle. Laundry is $10. Yeah, a gallon of milk is $5. Yeah, it's expensive. It's just, you think about it. Think about, have y'all ever thought about, I'm sure we all have gone to McDonald's or Burger King or Wendy's. The average cost of a meal at Burger King or McDonald's or whatever is about $10 now. It didn't double from what it used to be just only 5 years ago. You remember about 5 years ago, you can get a Big Mac combo for like $5.99. Now it's like every time if I go to the drive-thru at McDonald's, it's like, let me get a Big Mac, medium fry, because they don't never have the small. Medium is the smallest you get. Let me get a medium fry and a orange high C. That'll be $10.71. I'm like, $10.71. That used to be a steak meal at Chili's. So now a steak meal at Chili's is $25 million, but I'm exaggerating, but so Earth, Wind, and Fire wrote great tunes with higher, tighter than clams. Let me see, we're tighter than clams. They're tighter than clams. The gear is secondary. So, and believe it or not, David Foster was writing a lot of tunes for Earth, Wind, and Fire. But anyhow, say Hollywood is running out of money, Marvel films to make. Yeah, I'm a little burnt out. I think I've seen more interesting short films on YouTube than what Hollywood is putting out. I'm a little tired of Spider-Man 25, the Hulk version, 9. I'm burnt out on Iron Man. I'm burnt out on Fantastic Four. I'm burnt out on the X-Men. I'm burnt out on that. I've seen some interesting short films on YouTube that was just like, now that would make a good movie. Some people are making some incredible short films on YouTube that I think some of the writing and what they're doing on YouTube would blow some of the movies they're making out of Hollywood out the water. That's just me, but that's just my opinion. Secret Studios, welcome. Welcome. So let me see. You're asking about the Zoom recorder. I've never used a Zoom recorder. I think someone had a Zoom mixer that was on here. I've never used Zoom, any of the Zoom products. So I can't speak on it. I only can speak on products that I know about or I've heard about or actually used. I can't speak on products that I never used. That makes sense. Okay, so you said Happy Remembrance Day for those across the pond. Yeah, yep, and happy Respect for Veterans Day tomorrow. Yeah, I used to try to go out because for veterans, being a veteran, you can go some places, to give you free coffee and a donut here, or you go another place and they're offering, you may be able to get free food or whatever, but the lines be ridiculous. So I might try to go out and take advantage of Veterans Day, but it's the lines are always so long. I stopped doing it every year. But anyhow, happy Veterans Day for those that were served, Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, Coast Guard. Happy Veterans Day tomorrow. We, like you said, thank you for your service as well. People always tell me they always thank me for my service. I thank y'all for y'all service as well. Those are the veterans. So let's see. You're asking me, do you ever use processing tools from Infonic? No. I have to do not like that, such as the RX 960, RX 960. No. I sure haven't. So I can't speak on it. Man never said, I do all my grocery shopping online, then they deliver to my car in person at the store. The exact same stuff I buy 3 to 4 years ago, and that's now 4 times. Yeah, it's I noticed that I can buy like the same 12 items would have ran me about $40-$50. Now the same items today would be $100+ for the same. I'm like, it's crazy. I'm telling y'all, they're trying to starve us to death. Even though I didn't gain all this weight since I left. I can probably stand to cut back because I didn't gain a lot of weight since I jumped out of, got out of the military. Because I don't do PT no more. So Main 257, welcome. We're just talking about gear, like we always do. Love talking about gear. So Mari says, since I retired, what do I do to keep myself busy? You're still really, I'm not that young. Well, I don't know. I'm 54. I'll be 55 next year, but he says you're having an issue. I retired early and find myself chilling in the house a lot. It's what I do. One, doing videos like this on YouTube. I was working for a minute, and then I also went to school. I used my GI Bill to get my degree. I still play, I'm still a church musician, so I'm at church every weekend, doing choir rehearsal and all that. I'm also doing mobile mechanic work. And then every now and then I go out and travel with some friends, and we might go out and just go see stuff. But that's what I do to keep myself busy. Plus, I'm always with my cat because I'm heavily into photography. So I like going out and just shooting landscape pictures and things like that. So that I keep myself pretty busy. But with all the toys I got in here, I'm always playing with my keyboards to see what interesting things I can come up with. So it keeps me pretty busy, if that makes sense. And then you say, I'm from NOLA, and we have the World War II Museum here. Where's NOLA? Where's NOLA? Is that Oh, New Orleans, Louisiana. Is that New Orleans, Louisiana? Just give me a thumb if I'm saying it right. New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm thinking New Orleans, Louisiana. Never been to New Orleans. So Pat wrote somebody, he retracted his message. So yeah. Oh yes, and if you think this hurt, let's see, wait until the break says. Okay, let me see. Okay, they just write. Okay, gotcha. Hey Banks, happy Veterans Day to you. And again, thank you. I appreciate it as well. You and other veterans that may be here on live. Yep, like I said, once again, I always get my little veteran, got to get the salute. Appreciate everyone. Veterans, we already know. For those that don't know, I did 24 years. I did 21 active, 3 years reserve. So for those that, in the United States Army. So I said, yes, NOLA. Yeah, so I was right. New Orleans, or New Orleans, depending on how you pronounce it. And then Matthew, I said, I was in Los Angeles, LA 12 years ago, and the food was so cheap. Let me see. It's a shame it's changed so much. Prices are higher in Australia also. Yeah, it's kind of like that's across the globe. Los Angeles, fast-paced city, huge. If I'm not mistaken, I think Los Angeles is the second largest city in the United States. I think Chicago's third. I know Houston is fourth. I used to live in Houston. Houston is humongous, and I think it's the fourth largest. It is huge. But I'll know my way all around Houston. So, yeah, prices is ridiculous. Karen said, "Welcome. What's up, gang? Been busy, but I watched the recap. Okay, cool. Welcome. Welcome, Victor. Like I said, we've been on here for about an hour and 12 minutes now, just talking about gear. So what do you think today gear is better than the gear 20 years ago? Example, speakers or audio interface? Well, definitely audio interfaces, because the converter chips are better. Gear is subjective, because some people like vintage gear. Some people like classic, like an Ampex or like a retro 176. People prefer that as a compressor, versus some people like reissues. Some people like the modern stuff. Some people like the clones, because a lot of gear that was made back in the day, even down to even the resistors or capacitors, aren't made anymore. They, you have to modernize some of this gear. So, and in some instances, some people believe that even with the new gear, even the clones, they think it sounds better because it's made with more modern gear. I mean, it's made with more modern components. That's also subjective. So it really depends on what the sound a person's trying to get. And that's all I can say on that one. So, MC man, keep in mind that only a few pieces of old gear are standouts we celebrate today. Most of the stuff wasn't. Let me see. Today we have, like I said, I think it depends on what a person's looking for. Now, I think the ubiquitous gear that is you probably would see in most studios, that the gear that people would buy if you went the analog hard gear route, most people would have an SSL console, Yamaha NS10s, an LA2A, at least a couple of 1176s, some Pultec EQs, some Tube Tech, some distressors, and maybe Neve 1080, 1073, 1081s, API 312s, What else? Maybe a GML EQ, things like that. That was probably some of the gear and speakers that you've seen probably out of everything in most studios. Well, maybe not always the SSL console, because some people would have a Neve or an API, but every other outboard gear would just change differently from channel limited. Some people might have a channel limited, some people don't. Some people have a Shadow Hill, some people don't. Some people have a Fairchild, some people don't. And then other studio monitors, some people have Quest, some people have ATC, some people have Focal, some people have Barefoot, some people have Dyne Audio, some people have PMC Audio. It ranges, it changes from there. But those other pieces of gear is probably the most common pieces you see in, I don't know, most studios across the board. So let me see what else we got. A few let me see. Yuri made the ton of compressors no one knows about today. Same for Pultec. And a lot of people don't know Pultec stands for Pulse Technology. They actually designed those in the 50s for radio broadcasting for military, but studios have adapted a lot of outboard gear because Pultecs, they were really designed to bring clarity for whenever they were broadcasting, especially overseas or whatever. They wanted to make sure the vocals were coming really clear. That's why they would attenuate or boost certain, when it comes to, that's what the whole purpose of that attenuation and boost all those highs and lows on those Pultecs. And it worked. And they said, wait a minute, this works in recording. And it became a recording studio staple. There's a lot of gear that became a recording studio staple, like Yamaha NS10s were really designed to be, just a regular basic home stereo speaker. And then, but a lot of people didn't like because they were just so mid sounding. But studios loved them, so they became the studio version of Yamaha NS10s, Yamaha NS10M. So it just, studios would adapt all this gear based on what they thought would work in the recording process. But if you think about the recording process, it's only been around for about 65 years. The way we record, start from 4 tracks to 8 tracks to 16 track to 24 track to hard disk recorders, ADATs, to now we're doing audio interfaces. It's not really been around. So it really varies. So, all right. Now it said my chat was disconnected. Please wait. Successfully connected. I don't know what's going on here. Am I still live to you guys? Can y'all still see me? I don't know if YouTube disconnected or not. This is the first time I've seen this. Okay. Because you can never tell. It says chat disconnected, and then it's reconnected successfully. I don't know. So, you just can never tell. So let me read. Okay, so because it's fair to say the reason things there's such a thing as a classic gear is more to do with the music it was attracted to. Maybe all this popular gear is more than an illusion. Like I said, it's everything is subjective to a person liking. In other words, if you take, let's use Nashville as an example. Someone builds a recording studio in Nashville. Even though there's blues artists and different range of genres that go to Nashville, but Nashville is mostly going to be your country and western recordings. And Nashville has a way they like to record. So they're going to be the go-to pieces of gear and studios to accommodate that. Versus you go to LA, LA was at one point known for a lot of rock bands, a lot of um maybe some R&B bands, and maybe even some hip hop or whatever. So most people went to LA. That's why LA had the most recording studios. LA used to have, I don't know, 400 or 500 recording studios, ranging from the Village, Sunset Sound, Sound City, Record Plant, East West, United, Conway, Larrabee, you name it. They just had hundreds of them. New York had probably about 200 or 300. There's the Hip Factory, Electric Lady, and so forth. But there's a lot of them in New York as well. But LA had the most. Then I would say New York, then Nashville. Those are probably the three. And then, of course, there's recording studios in Chicago. There's some in Dallas. There's definitely some in Miami, Houston, Cleveland. And, of course, Motown used to be in Detroit. Then they moved to L.A. But it's really going to be based on the clients that they built these studios around and the gear they're going to choose for the clients. Because a lot of times producers wouldn't book these studios unless they were looking for certain gear that recording studio had. And they're, these producers and these artists at the time, $300,000-$400,000 budgets, $500,000 budget. Yeah, they're going to accommodate those artists. So it really depends. So, let me read some more. I got more comments coming in. Okay, cool. Everyone says they can still hear me. Okay. It's always been said that the technology that civilians like been used by the military for 10 to 20 years before we get, and not a whole lot of stuff, but you think about it, radio broadcasting, before we start getting to pre-recorded music, radio, think about radio was around before even TV. So they had to build broadcasting consoles, believe it or not, Rupert Neve even said when his first console was actually designed for broadcasting, wasn't designed for recording. When he got into making consoles, he designed consoles for broadcasting. But I think in the recording aspect, especially if you look, even if you go overseas to, where Abbey Road, where the Beatles were and all that, from my understanding, I could be wrong. Recording, engineers get inventive when it comes to this gear. Because technically, what was your mixing console? And this is also what I've learned. A lot of really, really early recording studios had to build their consoles. They didn't look nothing like this. Most of the early recording consoles had big knobs, the buttons were huge. They had big, gigantic VU meters, a few rotor knobs on it. They don't look like what we have in the modern console today. That was the consoles. And they had limited tracking, but you can thank Les Paul. I think it's Les Paul. Yeah, Les Paul is pretty much he's basically the inventor of multi-tracking. And it became adapted. So if you look at the history of it, but it's because of that, engineers would find gear that would everything they could do to make the stuff sound better. So they would, let's try that. Let's try that EQ, or let's try that. Let's take the electronics out of that tape machine and use the preamp section of it or whatever, or whatever. They would experiment, and then there would be people that would build gear, and it became a standard piece of gear. And then people say, oh man, this, yeah, like it's kind of like Bill Putnam, who invented the 1176 compressor. You know, he wanted a compressor that that would do a certain thing. And so he designed it and built it. And when he built it, they started running sound through it and it worked. And it just became and recording studios listen to other, recordings coming out, other recording studios. Hey, what you guys doing over there? Well, let's check out this 1176 compressor that Bill built. Oh, that's cool. Can you build me one? And that's why you have certain, before you know it, you got Joe Meek building stuff. You got, I forget the name that make the Overstayer. And it's just before you know it, these are people building gear, and they turned that into a business. And this is how outboard gear became, that makes sense. So, I got some more comments coming in through. Moss, welcome on Mawsome Styles from San Diego. Hey, San Diego, my sister used to be stationed in San Diego. She was in the Navy down there at Coronado Island. So she used to love San Diego. So welcome. And then see Victor Plus there's US versus British. Yeah, because you think about US API. Then you got British, which is basically SSL, Neve, Allen and Heath, Soundcraft, companies like that. And then there is let me see who else was making, especially on the console side. I gotta think. Because Trident is also European, Trident. So yep. Oh yeah, everyone's let me know. NOLA is New Orleans. Yep. So let's see. Deal, you're asking, see who made the best sounding music? Was there a certain genre that made better sounding music? Certain labels, certain coast or geographer? I think who makes the best sounding music is basically on who likes the artist that that the music is being made. In other words, for example, if I say Confunction, some people may not like Confunction, so they might not think their music's any good. But other people might, some people say, no, I listen to AC/DC. So they might say AC/DC makes the best music. So I think that's really up to the listener. Now, I would say when it comes to recording studios, certain recording studios gain reputation. I would say like Ocean Way, as an example, because Alan Size was just that meticulous about sound quality. But some people, even the recording studios, are subjective because some people say Sunset Sound is the best sounding recording studio ever, and then you got other people say no. I think Capitol Studios have the best recording studio ever. Then you'll say no, Larrabee is the best recording studio. Then no, Blackbird is the best. So I think I don't think one's better than the other. Like Sunset Sound, Joe Ciccarelli, it's at Sunset Sound. He's one of their main chief engineers. Versus Al Schmidt, when he was alive, was the chief engineer, especially for the A Room at Capitol. Versus Dave Pensado, used to be at Larrabee. And the names go on. Manny American is still, and Joshua is at Larrabee. So it really varies, because then you got Jack Pure used to be at Ocean Way. He used to be in their room that had the Focusrite console. But he has a lot of these engineers build their own personal recording studios too. So it really varies. So let me see. WSX, welcome. Says, what do I think about the new Tascam 2400 analog mix? I've never got to mess with them, but I'll tell you that the only Tascam I got to work on that I thought was an amazing console. That thing sounded so good. We had it was called the Tascam M520. The downside to that console, it had, not only did it have quarter-inch jacks, it had RCA jacks on the back. But the biggest down draw to that console, it only had 20 channels. Had it had at least 24 channels, I would look to get another Tascam, because that was an amazing sounding console. The EQ on that, excuse me. The EQ on that sounded so good, because the highs, mids, and low were all sweepable. They didn't have fixed high and low, shelved high and low. The mid, high, mid, and low was sweepable. Oh man, the control that you can really dial in the EQ on that board. That board sounded good, really good. So I'll move on. Oh yes, it was less. He created the multi-track. So as a Victor said, I would put one musician, 2 producers, 3 mastering, and then all in order. Okay, I got you. And then let me see. Yeah, Ampex, really. Yep. But see, Les would experiment in his garage. So you gotta watch the Les Paul interview. And he got inventive. So plus he was a guitar player. That's why he have guitars named after him, because he was a guitar player. Yeah. Oh yeah, Matthew said, yeah, audio engineers had to literally build stuff. Yeah, because you would have some guy would say, hey, I'm looking for a certain compressor. Can you make one? I'll say it like this. I would say it like this if you ever get a chance to look at a schematic for like an EQ, which consists of basically a variable resistor with it's a potentiometer. You got an op amp, a couple of resistors, and a capacitor. And the capacitor, the type of capacitor is what affects the signal of the frequency range. So and of course, there's a little bit more to it than that, especially when you're dealing with bandwidth and bandpass and all this other stuff. But in general, if you have a 4-band EQ, that's really consists of those. I'm talking about on an actual, and that's the basis of the circuit. So you can build you an EQ. You literally can just get you a wafer board and the components. You can literally build your own EQ. It's not hard. You could build a preamp. You could build a 2 preamp. They're not hard to build. So guys, because when our schooling system was really good, when they offer electronics in school before they start killing a lot of those programs, you could the amazing stuff. You could build a light bulb circuit or whatever. You could build that kind of stuff. So guys would make their own preamps, make their own EQs, their own compressors. It's not hard. So that's what he had to do. So let me see. Deal said, how long is a decent average time to record and mix a song? How many hours? It depends on the song. It really does. And it really depends on the artist, the band. Like if you have a band that's well rehearsed and they know their material, they can probably come to a studio and do a session and knock out 8. If they do a 12-hour lockout, they can probably get 8 songs recorded. If they're tight, they can knock out easy. Or if a person knows exactly what they're going to do, they can knock out and record a song in a couple of hours. In other words, if I track, I'll put it like this. Let's say I'm going to do a song, a 5-minute song, and I already know I'm going to use 8 instruments. Well, look at this. Going to take at least 5 minutes to record each part, because I got to record all the way through 5 minutes. So you do the math on that. 5 times 8, that's at least 40 minutes, right? So And it depends on how many overdubs I'm going to do if I'm going to add some more parts. So, an hour, maybe hour and a half. And that's if it's no issues, no mistakes or whatever. So it really depends. So Pablo says, when mixing or mastering, where should you master level be at? I'm not a mastering engineer. I'm just a mixing and recording guy. So I can't really answer a lot of mastering questions. I don't do mastering. I let other mastering engineers master. If that makes sense. But when mixing, my levels is you really want them to come as close to zero, which is basically unity as possible. That reduces to get you a good clean signal without getting a noise in there. You want to make sure there's no noise, ground noises or whatever as well, but you want to get it close to zero as possible. You don't want to start getting over and clipping. Digital distortion is not as forgiving as analog distortion, if that makes sense. You can distort a little bit in analog and it can actually be kind of pleasing, but digital, you got to be careful. They have clipping and all that. You just got to be careful with clipping. That's why whenever I see clipping, especially and it's going yellow and red, I got to bring the volume down because all you're going to do is get unpleasing distortions. And digital has a weird way it sounds when it's distorting, unlike analog. So that makes sense. Victor, you're asking Fleetwood Mac rumors is supposed to be the best silent album. And like I said, that's discretion because there are people that don't listen to Fleetwood Mac. They don't know who Stevie Nicks is. You'd be amazed who don't, especially if you think about it. Like me, I grew up on 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, but there are some people here that were born in like 1999. So they don't know who Fleetwood Mac is. They like Fleetwood who? Marvin, unless this artist is like super, super well known, like Stevie Wonder, they probably haven't heard of Fleetwood Mac or listening to, I was Androza. What's the Ambrosia? It was Ambrosia. Make a wish, baby. That's Ambrosia. But some people don't even know who Ambrosia is. Or listen, Michael McDonald when he was the Doobie Brothers. They don't know who. Yeah, but of course, if you know Michael McDonald's voice, but when he was the Doobie Brothers and Stilly Dan, some people don't even know who Stilly Dan is or listen to Stilly Dan. Like Stilly who? So, oh yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Oh, say Nick, what was up from Iowa? All right, what's going on, Iowa? I don't know if you live in Boise. I don't know if you're from Boise either, but welcome, Iowa. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if y'all getting snow. I know I got friends up in Colorado. They getting some serious snow right now. It's 3 feet. So Kevin says some old music gear magazines from the 70s actually show you step by step how to build a synthesizer. You can. Think about all the scientists and the engineers. Even if you ever go back and if you get a chance to go back on YouTube and watch the classic videos, or just on even electronics or electricity, it'd be the classic black and white films on like how electricity flows. And it'd be the generic voice. Hello, my name is Dan, and I want to talk about how electricity flows. And electricity flows negatively. And it would be a black and white picture, and it would show, animation of electrons flowing negatively and all that. They don't do educational films like that anymore. I think we're missing stuff like that today. I don't know if people are just bored with it, but I was fascinated with electronics. When I was a kid, quick story. I had a broken radio that I found, and my neighbor was into electronics. He was an electronic engineer guy, and I showed him I had this Emerson broken radio, and he said it doesn't work. I was like, "What doesn't work?" I found, he's like, "Oh, I can get that to work." I'm like, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, bring it." So he opened it up. The circuit board was cracked. So all he did was take it, and he resoldered every single circuit, and that radio came on. When he soldered and did that, and that was just soldering, I was blown away. I was sold on electronics because I've never seen someone that fixed something broken like that and they got it to work. I was blown away. So that's what got me kind of fascinated with electronics. So let me see. Matty 2 has said Jack Joseph Pewitt, has an absolutely mental student. Yeah, he's Warren here did a episode with him. But Jack, if you ever seen pictures, Jack, people think Chrysler Algae's rack of outboard gear is off the chain. Jack Pewitt got so much. I don't know, between him and I don't know if it's Joe Barussi. I don't know who's got more outboard gear, but there's a picture of Jack in Ocean Way. He's got the outboard gear in that picture is like insane. I'm like, who needs that much outboard gear? But apparently Jack did. So Victor's asking, as a mixer, do I have a must-go plugins you use? Mostly T-Rex. I use Acoustica Audio, some Waves, and it depends if I'm going to use Slate. But mostly IK Multimedia and mostly Acoustica Audio for the most part. Those two are my number one go-tos. But it varies on the plugins. It really does. Like because sometimes I don't always use, for example, T-Rex has an SSL bus compressor. I was using a lot until I was using that SSL bus compressor plugin until I start actually using the actual plugin by SSL, their actual plugin. And I like the SSL bus compressor plugin better. So that's my go-to. So let me see. I got a few more. I'll say digital clipping. He says I was taught to add an extra bus that all my other tracks and the bus groups to, so I can use the extra bus as a fader going into the master, which is left at the zero. I think someone was mentioning earlier. I'm carrying off what you just said. About someone's asking what it would take or something about working in the box compared to analog, and does it sound? I think I've always said this over and over. You have to parallel your DAW, especially the mixing console, to function like an actual console, to get it to sound like what was being done on the analog console. And that's definitely auxiliaries and bus groups and auxiliaries. I think a lot of mistakes were made where people were stacking 10,000 plugins on their channel, and it just start to sound muddy or whatever. So, or just never came out good because they didn't know that some of that stuff you want to put on an auxiliary to blend it, or you want to put stuff on bus groups, and a lot of people didn't know to do that. The DAWs they're programmed to react like an actual console. You just have to do it. Some people never knew to do that, if that makes sense. Let me see this. The next recording of all time, Vanilla Ice. But hey, get off the ice, man. Get off the ice. Oh, let me stop. The Jim Carrey version. I wish I could. I wish they offered stuff like, when I went to high school, they offer auto mechanics, electronics. They offer all kinds of trade skills in school that you could take that as part of. Like, I took electronics. I took home ec. I took what else? I took wood shop. And what else I took in high school? Yeah, wood shop, electronics, home ec. Um, I'm trying to remember. I didn't go back and look at my transcript, but yeah, I learned to make stuff with wood. It was, man, you could build stuff. I wish they hadn't got rid of those trades. And then of course I was in the band, I played trumpet and saxophone and band and tuba. So I think they're shortchanging students. I think private schools and a lot of suburb schools probably still have a lot of those programs, but a lot of public schools they ditched that, and that's such a shame. Like I took theory, music theory in high school. One of the best choices I could have ever made to take music theory in school. They're killing those programs. I think they're shortchanging students today. Just my personal opinion. Sometimes, and he said Jack doesn't even have acoustic. Sometimes you don't need it. You only need treatment when there's an acoustic problem. Sometimes people will buy acoustic treatment, put stuff, and actually create acoustic problems. So you got to remember, sometimes when it comes to acoustic panel, whatever, you don't want to do stuff until you actually are figuring out if you have acoustic problems. So just keep that in mind. And let me see what else we got here. Oh yeah, man. So I grew up listening to 70s R&B, some of the best music ever. Like me, I'm an R&B guy. Some people here are rock people, some people here are hip hop, some people, I like it all. I don't like all artists and all music, but I like a lot of different genres of music. But I definitely grew up on R&B, smooth jazz, gospel, some of the crossovers, some of the pop, a few rock. I wasn't heavy rock. I did like some of the Van Halen stuff, but I wasn't really like that. Someone says St. Nick's, nothing like that, like the funk. My hometown is known for funk, because my hometown that I'm from, you're talking Ohio Players, Roger Troutman and Zapp. We're talking Lakeside, Heatwave, Sun, Phaso, just, that's those from my hometown. But yeah, definitely funk. I mean, that's all they played on the radio, because we had so many bands from Dayton. So we knew all of them. Oh yes, Maddie said, I love workshop in high school. Yeah. I took wood shop, so I can learn how to use different drills and saws, and you would cut different wood and build stuff. You would build, I used to love building things with wood, and then you would, of course, of course you would, when you put I put the coating on it, to treat the wood and all. I'm drawing a blank because I'm getting old now, and all that. Put some of that stuff in the kilt. Plus, another one of my favorite class was art. I would love making stuff out of clay. I used to make sculptures and stuff like that out of clay, because I'm an artist. I draw. My whole family, we do artwork. We're artists. So drawing and portraits and all that was huge. So I just love working in art. But yeah, I think all those programs, you take away from that, I think it spoiled a lot of younger people with the social media and all that now, because the stuff that you learned, and even in high school and school altogether, a lot of skills, you could actually use those skills. But I think they used to be like that because most people in the 40s, 30s, 20s, and whatever would just have a high school. So they learned trades. And then after that, you would go work in factories and plants and things like that. And high school was all that was required. I don't think college degrees became a requirement to the 60s. And that was just to weed out. And now, master's degrees or whatever, but that's a whole different subject. Max said, I'm definitely a rock guy, but it seems like rock has gone uh the way that big band did. I think because you got a lot of people that, you know, even with metal bands and all that, um, I think the record labels, because R&B pretty much went away too. Because R&B today is not R&B. It really isn't. But record labels, when they all start getting bought out by the big three, they had a lot to do with that. Killing the rock, killing R&B, killing a lot of genres of music. They had a lot to do with that because corporations are about making money, and when they're so greedy about making money, they kill the artist's creativity and they kill certain genres because there are a lot of people that still want to hear classic rock. They still want to hear your Molly Crew. They still want to hear your Nine Inch Nails. They still want to hear your Guns and Roses, and they still want to hear, um, um, you know, your Van Halen's and your AC/DC and Metallica and all that. They still want to hear that. And record labels like, well, no, we were trying to make money. We need to make these, you know, this. I'll get into a Rick Beato thing about that. So, yeah, Victor, I grew up on 90s music, but love the Motown 50s and 60s stuff. Music, yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, I like a lot of the Motown era too. So I said the meters start the funk era moving. There's so many, you know, some people even try to claim James Brown. You know, everybody know, if you know, James Brown was from Augusta, Georgia. Try to claim that James Brown was the father of funk, you know, but you know, music has evolved tremendously. Man says trade skills are coming back, though. Not sure high school is quite there. Well, you know, and you think about it with ITT, of course, they're no longer around. And all those type of schools that used to do trade schools. But really, and I'm gonna tell you why I think trade schools are coming back, because I think people realize college degrees, most of them are scams. People are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars getting into student loan debt, getting a degree that can't get them a job. Because we're going back to a trade skilled system, because we've become a service industry country. We have the factory hard, you know, type of the industry, because they outsourced that to overseas. But don't get me started on that. That started happening in the 60s, where they started outsourcing to, like, you know, that's why so many factories are made, you know, in Taiwan and India and all that. But yeah, anyhow. So, but anyways, man, says I got to roll. Y'all have a good. I appreciate you tuning in, man. I'll be here next week. I'm about to shut it down. Anyway, it's about to be 10 o'clock, so I'm about to shut it down myself. I want to be here for about a couple more minutes. I got to shut it down myself. So, yeah, Andrew said one thing is missing is good music. Yeah, I mean, I still listen to 70s. I still listen to classics. I don't really listen to. I listen to some new stuff. Like, I like a lot of the K-pop stuff, believe it or not. But I'm more listening to more 80s, 90s for the most part. That's just what I like. So yeah. So James Brown is the godfather of hip hop. Yeah, he's actually more like funk soul, you know. But they started sampling James Brown in hip hop. Well, they were sampling. You know, if you think about rap music in the 80s, they were sampling from everyone, because most rappers didn't play instruments. They had to, you know, get records and sample from all the classic stuff. So that's where sampling really started in hip hop in the 80s. And they were, you know, taking records and taking clips from records. He said, "You ever dug Ready for the World?" Oh, Sheila. Um, I like Ready for the World. I wish they had more. I wish they had done more. It's so many groups, but the music business is a MF. That's all I can say. Um, you said Mozart showed up today, he would have because you think about it, who's listening to concertos in A flat? Who's listening to a solo in the key of A minor? No one's, it's no different than like big band. No one's listening to classical music like that. No one really goes to the theater to listen to opera, even though people still go to certain theaters to listen to opera. Is not mainstream anymore. But you got to look at the history. The history is people had to go to theater to listen to music. That's the only place you could hear it. But when radio was invented, well, I don't have to go to a theater anymore. I can just listen to radio. And when they started doing pre-recorded music, that's why they would let the radios play pre-recorded music. You didn't even have to go to theaters or concert series to hear artists debut new music. You can listen to the pre-recorded version on the radio, which turned into normal radio, and then TV came around. Well, I don't even have to always listen to the radio. I can see the artists come on the Tonight Show, and then after that, when music video came out, well, I can watch music video. You think about it. Technology changes things, so let me see what else. May says science and medicine is where the money is. Science, well, that depends. Well, medicine, because people are always getting sick. Just like they say, if you want a guaranteed job, be a mortician. that's such a grim, that's such a dark joke, but it's the truth. It's like no different. Like, you want a guaranteed job, be a fireman, because someone's always on fire. Someone's always getting sick. Someone is always passing away. It's just, so, oh yeah, so Matthew has said it's definitely easier to buy gear than to make it these days. Yeah. Like I said, I already talked about my thoughts about the whole process of why I'm discouraged that people don't want to buy artists' music when all the work and effort it takes to make this music, and they just don't want to buy it. I'm like, is it really putting in the effort? That's why I made videos about, is it even worth having a music career today and stuff like that? So it just, sometimes you're like, I got to spend all this money, doing all this time, editing my music, mixing, mastering, getting it distributed, and people don't even want to buy it. How does that make you feel? So, he said country music is definitely the best. I'm just kidding. I like country music. Believe it or not, I like that song "White Liar" by Miranda Lambert. Hey, white liar. Believe it or not, I actually do. I like that song. There are some country songs I actually like. One thing I loved about older style of country music is they knew when to end the song. You knew it was going to end. They always would put an ending on country music. I love that, versus music all going on for 10 minutes. You got to fade it out, and because it's like, okay, it's been playing for 10 minutes. Okay, I'm a little burnt out on that, but that's just me. So John said all the samplers had James Brown. Yeah. So James Brown was sampled a lot, but so was a lot of artists. I was saying, Nick says Parliament Funkadelic. I'm gonna give y'all a story about Parliament next time we talk about Parliament. I got some insight on Parliament and Funkadelic, and I'll talk about that in my own video. I think y'all gonna be amazed on this story with Parliament, as well as Gap Band and Sly and the Family Stone. Victor said, let's be honest, today's music is like fast food. Yeah. They used to call it bubblegum music in the 80s, fast food, you know. They don't really call it real music. So let me jump down to a few more because I'm gonna have to end it. This is man, I love when y'all come on here. This is awesome. Before you know it, it's been 2 hours and then it passed by. So you know, the only thing with Spotify, Victor said about Spotify is well, Spotify, you know, I got my thoughts on Spotify. So A-Rank says 2 individuals that have been sampled more than others in entertainment are James Brown and Bruce Lee. Well, you know, I gotta admit, when we was a kid, we go watch Kung Fu Theater on Sundays. Everyone thought they knew Kung Fu. Say, it's like go out there watch Kung Fu. Now everyone think they what's the famous, you know, he was always the Chinese guy with the white eyebrows and the white hair and the white beard that could beat up everyone. He's like, this guy looked like he's 2,000 years old, but he can stop and beat people one hand. And it's and although, you know, I used to love Kung Fu, you know. So I'm laughing about it because Kung Fu Theater was awesome. They made a song about it's about Kung Fu fighting. So not that they only it said thanks, nice show, appreciate it. Thanks, Vanguard. Appreciate it. I said not only do they want to buy it, they not, yeah, exactly. They also don't want to listen to it for free. Yeah, you know, it's like I said, I got my thoughts on it. I'm just, you know, that's why people always ask me, man, you got any music and where you put them? Why? People aren't going to buy it. I spent hours on it. No one wants to buy it. So, you know, it just, because I don't listen to country, but think they have the best musicians. Yeah, well, because they always hire musicians. So Nashville is his own. Nashville musicians are their own. They got a thing going on with Nashville musicians, but anyhow, personally, me, when it comes to musicianship, I think jazz musicians are because you have to be technically proficient to play jazz, especially bebop jazz. But that's just me. But I'm not taking away from Nashville musicians. So it says, when I get a chance to check out Pete and Bass Window Frame Cypher 2, it's hilarious. It's kind of jamming, but when you see the personalities, it's okay. All right, Pete and Bass. Okay, Bass Window Frame Cypher 2. Okay, I'll try to remember that. I'll check them out. So once again, it is now after 10 o'clock. So I'll be here again next week, 8 o'clock Central Time to do this again. Love everyone. All the interaction is great. It is awesome. But I got to shut it down. And I'm going to see y'all again here next week. This was always fun because it's always fun. I love interacting with everyone. So I appreciate everyone. And like I said, we're going to see you next week. And y'all have a great one. Thank you. Y'all have a great one.